Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. No matter where you are, it is so super cool that we can come together regardless of time zones, but all at one time in one location and have amazing conversation. So we are on the Prophet Trio Live, which for those of you that don't know, we do these once a week, but we alternate. So last week was our audio. This week is our live stream. And we want to welcome everyone who is joining in and listening to us, watching us today. If you could tell us where you're located. I am here in Houston, Texas. And Chella, where are you located?
I am in Orange County, California.
Awesome. Now we do have, as you can see, the Prophet Trio. There's not a trio of us. There's only two of us. So we've had some technical difficulty this morning. We are waiting on Chad to join us, but we did want to get started. And oh, by the way, the technical difficulty, I actually started the countdown thinking we were going live and realized I don't think I ever hit the live button, which by the way happened to me yesterday as well. So we were even later than we had wanted. So we are here though, right? So we're happy to be here. And the goal of these lives versus the audios is an opportunity for us to have people come join us on stage. So we pick a topic and we talk about them together, with the goal being that people walk away with practical tips from that audio stage that they can actually implement. The purpose of the lives is either to carry on that conversation from the audio event, or maybe in some instances, sorry, I got to freaked me out for a second. Or in some instances, it's that we're starting a new conversation, and the goal is we'll take that live into the audio room the following week. So whatever that may be, we want to engage in conversation, but obviously in a different way. So as you have questions or comments, put them in the comments below and let's talk about them. So today, though, we're going to do a quick intro. You've heard me talk enough, so I'm not going to do mine, but maybe Chella can do her own. So Chella, take it away for a second with your intro.
Yeah, just 30 seconds. And one, please, I'm going to take, this is Denise's favorite part, is tell us where you're tuning in. And tell us, are you watching live or are you team replay? And Chella, and I think it's interesting, Denise, how even the three of us came together. Right. And it came together in an audio room. And I say that because you just never know. Keep showing up, keep engaging, keep the conversations going. But Chella coming in, tuning in, and I'm delighted because this is a topic that we've been talking about not only in our audio rooms and in our lives, but we've also had quite a bit of one-on-one discussions about this. Right. And when I say one-on-ones, I mean, the three of us have talked about it. Because to me, it's such an important topic, and because there's so many different directions we could take it in. So.
Agreed. I mean, really, when the topic and the reason why we're having this conversation is because sales has evolved a lot sales should be evolving all the time. Yes. And we're talking between now versus 5 years ago. If you recall, 5 years ago, it was very much, you still cold called regularly. I mean, buyers didn't love cold calling then, but it was different, right? They would still pick up the phone. They were, if they had an opportunity, they would engage in conversation, maybe not always so super excited about, engaging with a cold call, but they did engage in cold calls. Emails, I mean, you still got emails a lot, just as much as you probably do today, but for some reason we actually took the time to read through them a bit more, and you could send a cold email and maybe get a response. Right now the response rate is super low when you're cold calling. So how do we do prospecting in a way that really drives results, right? If we reflect back on last year's stats in 2023, had to think what year we were in. That is really very sad. In 2023, one of the Salesforce.com reports was that only 28% of salespeople hit their quotas. If we think about this year, right now, they're only really on target to hit 25%. So while it's only a 3% decline, it's still a decline. And when you think about entrepreneurs, we have more and more people who are entering the entrepreneurial world and realizing that sales is harder than they had anticipated. And we see a lot of people going back to the corporate world after having attempted the entrepreneurial world, because the way buyers buy and the way we must prospect has changed so dramatically over the last 4 years. We could talk about why that started, why that happened. We don't need to waste a whole lot of time there. I think everyone probably knows that. But if you don't and you want to know why, my thought process on that, then most certainly let us know in the comments below and we can respond to that. Thanks. Hello. We can't tell who that is. It says LinkedIn user. And I'm not looking at the LinkedIn page, so I can't tell who that might be, but we welcome you. So thank you. Let's talk about prospecting. I mean, Chella, you and I, we have to do it every day, right?
Every day. Well, let me correct that. I shoot to do this 5 days a week, sometimes 6, but at least, right? Definitely. Oh.
Yes, pandemic. That was the reason why sales has changed. It's Sia. Damn profile won't change. Hey, Sia, it's good to see you. Which, by the way, Sia means 4. Did you see the conversation, Chella, in the comments that we had under, I think, one of her posts? I tried to bring you into it yesterday, but you were busy doing something yesterday, I know, so you weren't on LinkedIn as much. But Sia is 4, and I told her that you like things in 3s. Or 1s. I mean, you like odd numbers.
I definitely enjoy odd numbers, 1, 3, 5. But no, I thought she did 3 tips.
She did do 3 tips, but she had originally said the post was give, and we're digressing here for a moment, but there's a point. I'm going to bring us back why this is important. We had the conversation as part of prospecting, but so the point was, her post was, at least, instead of giving information overload, make sure and I might have confused information overload with another post that I read, but the point was she wanted you to hone in on making sure you give 1 good tip. And yet she gave 3 tips. And she realized that she caught herself and said, I do realize I just suggested you give 1, and instead I gave 3. And I said, well, if you ask Chella, she always likes odd numbers. So 1, 3, I mean, who really cares, right?
But I thought you did a beautiful job, Sia, because they all 3 tied together. So I thought that was beautiful.
She said, speaking of prospecting, it's why I'm on LinkedIn. I changed my profile status and it won't change back. Oh no. Yes. Well, this is a great segue into, because I do think, prospecting comes in many different forms now. You really have 2 types of prospecting. You have outbound and you have inbounding, right? We all would love to get to a point where we're inbound, where all of our leads are coming inbound. In order to do that, however, it does take a little bit of work, which is why having good conversation, I mentioned Sia's post, and while wasn't really the necessarily our topic, it takes us back to, we had a conversation in the comments. And if you want to inbound, if you want to get to a point where you're getting inbound leads, it is about having conversations with people, creating visibility for yourself and establishing credibility, so that you're engaging in conversations like this, which turn into then warm opportunities, which is then focused around inbound leads. Now, that being said, let's talk about prospecting from an outbound perspective, because the reality is most of us are not in a position, or a lot of us are not in a position where we're getting that many inbound leads. We are probably getting inbound leads for sure, but to really rely on inbound leads only, you have to be like, a Keenan, or maybe even a Alex Hermosi, or those types of guys. Sorry about that. Could you hear that?
This is real life, folks.
I know. This has been our day. So see, it's not just you, it's us too. We started late because the third person on the trio, which it's not even a trio today, it's just a double. He couldn't get on. And then poor Chella got knocked off a couple of times. Then I attempted to go live and thinking we did the countdown and everything. And then I didn't even go live. Then we were even super late. And Thea says, I find folks who put themselves out there on social media like live streams sets you apart from the jump. Think about how many sales folks actually take the time to do this. That is so true. And that she's right? Because when you put yourself out there, so maybe let's go back to inbounding for a second. Reminder, there are two types. That's really four. Two types. There are two types of prospecting, inbounding and outbounding. And inbounding is this, math is not a strong suit for salespeople. Yeah, because I was doing two. Welcome, Chad. Hey. Yay, good to have you.
Got a lot of technical difficulties.
We were talking about Chad. Well, we've had a whole conversation with Sia, and we've been talking about the two different types of prospecting. And where we were going was on outbounding, but where we've been focused really on is on the inbounding, because if you look at inbounding happens by just putting yourself out there, right? And that's what Sia was saying as well, right? When you put yourself out on social media, like live streams like this, right? Sets you apart from the rest of the group, from the rest of all the other salespeople out there. But it is really, inbounding takes a little bit of time and effort. And while inbounding is great, and we all want to get there, putting yourself out there, like having conversations in the comments, generating content, joining LinkedIn Lives, attending or participating as a guest in podcasts, going on stage or attempting to get on stage in audio rooms. Those are all huge value adds that help you get yourself out there so you're visible and credible, so that you can establish credibility, which gets you those inbound leads. But let's talk then about outbounding. We're already halfway through, so we want to give everyone some good tidbits and nuggets. Hold on. Sia says, we all know this. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. That is true. And I would say, Sia, that it's know, like, and trust with credibility. I think there's a huge difference now because there's so many different people out there, and establishing credibility is even more key. And she says, no better way for prospects to see and hear you over time. Yep. Mike says,
really
how do you inbound and outbound at the same time? Public speaking.
That's where the DMs come into play, Mike, is when people start commenting or liking your content. That's where you get the opportunity to send them that DM and introduce yourself and invite them to have that conversation. Now you've got that flow going. It's a talk, and you get to move them towards getting off of the LinkedIn platform and moving to an in-person or a virtual conversation, or at the least a phone conversation, and start having that dialogue. So your inbound is just the interest, the generation of building that curiosity in what it is you're talking about. And then that outbound factor is just you reaching back and reciprocating. Think of sitting across a table in a coffee shop with someone you've never met before and just striking up a conversation. Your inbound and your outbound is just that way. Just play it like you're having a conversation.
I love that, Chad. But if I were to think about some practical tips for you, Mike, the way to really to divide out your time. So think about inbounding is you have to, like Sia said, continue to put yourself out there. So find the activities that enable you to really focus on building your brand, being visible, and establishing credibility. So how can you do that effectively? You're a public speaker, so getting on lives, joining audio rooms and getting on stage, finding podcasting events, and just generating content. That helps you with your inbounding, finding ways to generate conversation. But as you do that, you have to carve out time every day for inbounding. and activities. And then you've got to also carve out time for outbounding. So the only way to do it is to really carve out that time. And then you got to think about what is your outbound strategy, right? There are multiple different mediums. There's phone call, there are cold calls, there are cold emails, there are cold DMs. There is what I would prefer, which is the warm, like turning them from a cold to a true warm, right? And there's a whole process around that. But Chad, maybe give us some idea on what you think, what are some additional, or maybe expand on some of the prospecting opportunities or activities that there might be from an outbound perspective.
Yeah, what you can do is you can actually use your content that generates your inbound as a springboard. You can use that as a way to make a connection request to someone you've never spoken to before on LinkedIn, but would be a really good, a relevant opportunity for you. You can also use it for emails. One of my favorite things to do is to create an email chain where my opening one is, the person's name. So in this case, Mike, in case you missed this on LinkedIn. And what I do is I put in the link to a piece of content that I put out, or maybe a piece of content that's relevant to both of us that has nothing to do with either of us, but just sparks that conversation. And that way, what you're doing is you're not coming at them with a sales pitch. You're not pitch slapping them. You're getting their attention, and then you're going to ask them a very important question, just a very relevant question that starts that conversation. So by using the DMs and by using emails and things like that, to find that common ground to start that conversation and having that cadence, whether someone has engaged with your content or not, doesn't matter, as long as they're the right persona or the right type of prospect for you. Denise is raising her hand because she has.
Yeah, because I think you've got some audio issues, Chad.
Oh, really? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but it's really bad. It's only when you talk right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you have to, maybe if you can take your head, maybe use something instead of your earbuds or something. Something's not right.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's been that morning for me.
Yeah. Well, we've had that same kind of morning. We talked about that. So Sia says, Sia says the static is bad. So maybe we'll test you out in just a second. But she says, let's be super honest. As sales peeps, our employers can dump us if we miss our quotas. So having prospects and clients see who we are gives us an open door to move to other companies with credibility. We aren't just shills selling product. I so agree.
Denise,
Hold on, I'm muting Chad. Okay, so I muted Chad. Chad, when you're coming back, I muted you because even when you were moving, we could hear the static. Okay, so you're right. So that's a whole nother thing, though. That's about personal branding, right? So personal branding in the sales world is such an important, even in the corporate world, it's so important for us to build our own brand and our credibility because we do have, we are disposable as salespeople now, right? So she said, she asked if it was a headset issue, Chad, but I don't know if that's the case or not. I'll unmute you. Take a test.
Is this any better?
No. Okay, we're going to keep you on mute. We're going to keep you on mute. Sorry, Chad. All right. So we're kind of all over the place. So we
are Denise, and we're not. We all have to bring points, but that's the point, right?
Yep.
Outbound and inbounding, there's so many different directions we can go into, right? But I think we bring it back to you, which is something that is asking questions and starting the conversations on the post, whether it's on the post or on the comments, right? Right. And you do a beautiful job at that, but that's where the conversation starts, because that's when you get people asking questions, right? And that's when you get to see, do they resonate with your content, right? Because if they've taken the time to make a comment or to reply or to do something, that means there's something in your content is resonating with them. So that's the beginning. For me, that is where it all begins, because you're already even total strangers coming in and you have something in common.
Agreed. And that's part of, as Sia says, we have to develop our personal brands to make it easier for prospecting. And she's right. And so having these conversations, I always think of LinkedIn as in terms of a friendship, right? Or the people in which you're engaging with in terms of friendship. When you are engaging in conversation, you're starting to establish a type of relationship with them. And when you're establishing that relationship, it's getting to know one another, understanding their likes, their dislikes, their perspectives. But at the same time, they're getting to learn you, which helps you to build your personal brand, right? They're getting to know who Chella is, who Chad, Denise, Sia, who we each are and what we stand for, which therein really fosters that personal brand. And I do think that that Sia's right. We do have to develop that brand, and taking into account, getting out there and having these conversations in the comments is really a great way to start that, as Chella mentioned, right? Because inbounding, outbounding is at its core is still ultimately has a common thread. Outbounding is not going to have any impact if they don't know who you are. You can have the best marketing plan in place and do the best attempt at outbounding, but if they don't know who you are, it doesn't really matter.
And this is why showing up, right? And I want to take one moment to say thank you, Mike. We appreciate you being here with us again, right? Because we started from an audio room, and now we know a little bit about his business. He understands what we come in and we are doing. So we started, right? It all started in an audio room, and we're continuing to build that relationship, right? We started at the coffee shop, it's total strangers. We had a cup of coffee, then we moved to tea, and we're continuing to have those conversations.
Sia says, maybe it's because of my background in tech, but we are known to be company hoppers. I would say traditionally, yes. I was not a company hopper for a while. I stayed at one company for over 11 years, but I will tell you that one of the things that did me a disservice was because I didn't build a personal brand. I did internally. Ooh, you're still... Talk for a second, Chad. Yeah.
Is this any better?
No.
Cut it.
Okay, I just muted him. Sorry. Clients and prospects have to know that salespeople have their back. Yes, they do have to know that. And it doesn't matter then where you go, because the reality is when you move from company to company, they want to know that wherever you go, you are still with them, working with them. You're going to support them. You're going to continue to build on these relationships that you've already established with them. And that's all part of building your... Go ahead, Chella.
No, I think that you bring up a good point about, you were about to share how 11 years in one company and you did a disservice. I think that's really a good connection to as an entrepreneur, right?
Yes. I did a disservice to myself because I had a great internal brand within the organization, but I did not have much of a personal brand outside of the organization. So yes, I did establish that really quickly, and I leveraged LinkedIn, and there's a whole story that goes along with that. But not everyone does what I did and, puts themselves out there in a big way at that moment when I needed to find a new job. That being said, though, it's taken me a long time to build this personal brand outside of the corporate world and here on LinkedIn, right? It doesn't happen overnight. She said she remembers a client telling me, dude, you just sold this product. Now you're at the competitor. And we know some have vendor lock in tactics. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Well, and that's a whole nother conversation though, Sia, because the fact that you sold at one company and then you went to the competitor, right, is kind of sometimes a bit icky and sticky and confusing to your prospects and your clients. But if they know you and you built this personal brand with them and they know you at the core, they know that there was a reason why you probably went to the competitor. It doesn't mean you're going to sell them right away again. It just means you're going to continue to foster that relationship. So at a later point, when they're ready to change contracts or look at whether or not they want to renew contracts, you can have a conversation with them again. Wouldn't you agree, Sia? Oh, Chad, you're still...
It's getting worse, actually, Chad. I don't know if that helps or not, but it's not getting better, or not even a tad. It's almost going in the other opposite direction. But I think if we take this to entrepreneurs, Denise, is the thing about this, building your brand so that you have an A product, and as throughout time you create a different product, right? It's knowing, is when they know you and they know what you're able to, it's easier for you to make the transition to be able to enroll people into your other programs, right? Because you're growing and you're learning. So to me, that's what I've seen. I know we started with inbound, outbound, but this is all part of the same thing. When you're beginning to show up and you build that personal brand, people get to know you. And then things change, right? You may start it out with one product, but now you saw a need and you developed a different product, right?
Well,
Because they know you.
and I think maybe this is because we're already starting to run out of time. Maybe this is the conversation. I mean, look, you and I, this is not necessarily, neither is it Chad's. This is not our area of expertise. This is not what we teach on as it relates to personal brand, but we live building our personal brand every single day. And Sia's right. You know, personal brands, when you talk about the corporate world, we have to have them outside of the company. As an entrepreneur, we most certainly have to have them because people only buy from people they know, like, and trust now with credibility, as both Sia and I said. And when we talk about prospecting and, she said she's got to go. Great combo. Thank you for humoring me. And she's one of the things that that she mentioned is people are not going to buy from you, even from a when you're prospecting on an outbound. They're not even going to be interested in the outbound conversations if they don't know who you are. So how do we establish a personal brand? And I do believe, and I agree with Sia, that you can have the best marketing strategy. We already mentioned this already, but I'll leave this with everyone as we're closing out. And then Chella, if you wouldn't mind leaving your closing thoughts. I really do believe that you can have the best marketing plan in place and you can execute it on it. And sometimes that's the hardest thing, right? Is executing. So you've executed on it and yet you still aren't seeing results because no one knows who you are. You have to build the brand around you and your company or you and your corporate business, right? And so maybe next week, not maybe, we should talk about next week personal branding and how that plays a role in our prospecting. What do you think?
I think I'm making myself a note as we speak because I think that's great.
Awesome. All right. So next week will be our audio event where we'll talk about personal branding and how that really does help us in prospecting, both outbound and inbounding. So Chella, maybe you can leave kind of your parting thoughts for today.
Yeah, no, I think that one, we appreciate you for being here. Tell us where you're tuning in. Tell us, are you Team Replay? Hashtag Team Replay, because we are here to share what we've learned and what we practice, right? This is the real deal. I mean, we had some technical difficulties and it's real. And for me is tell us your questions, share with us. What else do you want to know? All of this, though, it's all to do with the same thing. How you show up, how you do that live, how you show up, how you make those comments. It's all about inbound and also attracting those folks, right? It's all part of the same. And yes, it does take a little bit of time. And yes, it does take time, right? And Denise is really phenomenal at this. And I've, since I started hanging out with her, put it on my calendar, right? There's certain times of the day that's on my calendar for me to show up and for me to make comments. Oh, thank you.
Thank
Please,
you, Vanessa. We appreciate that.
we really, really do. And we welcome your questions, Vanessa. We are here between the three of us. We have so many years of experience. We're here to share our wisdom. We're here to share any tips that we will help you along your journey. We want you to learn from us. We've already made some mistakes, too many for me. I'm speaking for me, too many to list. But we want to share that. We want to see how can we help you on your journey so that you're saving time and money. So we appreciate you, right? That's it. We're here to share. We appreciate you being here. Leave us your questions. And remember, next week we'll be on audio, so you'll be able to get on stage with us and ask those questions.
Yes. So thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate you. Happy Thursday. And we're going, so I've been trying something fun. So as anyone who's hanging around, we're going to do some music. Oh, I don't love that though. Hold on, we'll go back to it. All right, so now we're going to end the stream. We're going to leave everyone with some music.